Just a quick note, these type of videos where I talk about someone else's opinions, I'm going to be upfront with you. It's just basically either to shed light on somebody else that has something good to offer, or it's a clout grab to try to start a conversation to some extent on the topic, not the person. Now, I've done a couple of videos like this where I've talked about Alex Kickle's opinions on something or Trevor Bachmeyer's, and the feedback I got was interesting on that. Now, in both of those videos, I said that I'm not some super fan of either of these two guys. I don't know that much. I'm just a casual. I catch something once in a while. And so that's why I just talk about like one topic with them. This video is a little bit different, and that the whole reason I'm making it is to highlight the good work that this man is doing and the good character that I see exhibited in his videos. There's nuance, there's common sense, there's thoughtful, well thought out, researched opinions and takes on various topics. And with all of that said, it's very direct, very to the point. He says it better than I can say it. In fact, on these type of topics, he's so much better than me at condensing his thoughts into something that makes a rational and reasonable presentation. I can allude to certain concepts and things like that, but I tend to get lost down a rabbit trail and lose my train of thought and go all over the place. So I try to chop that down when I present a video, but I just want to say that overall, I'm really enjoying Josh Holyfield's content, and so far, as near as I can tell, he seems to be a real one. One of those guys that really cares about the information that he's presenting, as near as I can tell. I mean, you can fight me on that if you want, but this is one that I'll stand behind. Like I said, I don't know these other guys, but I got caught up watching Josh Holyfield stuff, and I thought, wow, what a breath of fresh air when it comes to talking about common sense aspects of this whole game that we're in. Now, on to the topic of this video. Do I agree with his take on SLU-PP-332? Now, anybody that's watched me a little bit knows I've dabbled with this and experimented with this and formulated this into various forms. I started with a job for a client trying to get as many milligrams per milliliter into an injectable for them as possible. That was their request. I was able to do 25 milligrams per milliliter, and we can still do that. I've actually updated the formula since doing that video and since doing that project to where there's a more cohesive, more stable emulsion. I actually feel like 5 milligrams per milliliter is kind of a sweet spot when it comes to convenience of use and accurate dosing and that sort of thing. So that's what I run with, whether I'm using sublingual or injectable at this point, personally. Now, in this video, he talks about how it's the popular new thing. He's been avoiding making the video for a while because it's, something that's still fairly new, and he wants to make sure that he's giving a balanced take. Essentially, his take, from what I can understand in this video, is it's not nearly as bioavailable orally as what people think it is, and I 100% agree with that. And then the reconstitution that most people are doing with BAC water is ridiculous because it's not soluble in water as such. It's hydrophobic. It's actually opposed to water. It's beyond insoluble in water. So you can make a suspension if you shake it up, I guess, but that's the issues that he talks about, and this is the same issues that I ran into as far as formulating it into a high milligram injectable. And he even gives a breakdown on how the researchers did it, what they used, and it's actually very similar, minus and plus a couple of ingredients as to what I ended up with just screwing around on my own, but when I looked it up, yeah, that's how it's done. So, yeah, there's some DMSO involved. There's some massaging it into place involved, and he says most people aren't using it that way, so they're not getting a smooth releasing injectable, and they're not getting a very orally bioavailable oral version. So I agree 100% with his science and what he's talking about on this. I just, I have less of a risk meter, and so I'm choosing to go ahead and mess around with it, and I've had a little experience with it so far, and so far so good. I've talked about my issues with methylation surrounding this topic and stuff, but I just wanted to give a quick note. I know this is not a very controversial or very meaty, video as far as that goes. I'm not hating on the guy, and I'm not praising him just because he exists, but the delivery and his concise, well thought out presentation on these topics is excellent. And I highly recommend going to his channel and checking out, and he might not agree with every individual take. I don't, but I agree with the science on most of what he says. And that's a good metric for me to go by. If I agree with 80% of what a guy's saying because I've looked into it and the science matches and I've been discerning about it, that's a pretty good source to follow. And of course, always do your own research, but what a great place to start. He makes it concise, easy to understand, and I highly recommend checking it out. One of the reasons I bring this up also is that Josh is a guy that exudes a lot of the dad energy of protecting people and making safe choices, but also intelligent and encouraging people to do their best, et cetera, et cetera. And I want to put that out there that that's the difference. I'm at kind of a different archetype. I'm not really the king or the dad or the alpha. I'm more of the weirdo, the wizard, the guy that's out in the woods doing some crazy thing, right? So I'm the guy that pops in once in a while and says, hey, let's try it this way, you know, or let's do this nutty thing. So just to be clear on that, I have no illusions about being a vigorous Steve or a Josh Holyfield. I'm kind of the other type, the Dan Duchesne type. So there are different types of coaches or I don't really believe there are such a thing as real true gurus or experts or sages or whatever, but my whole thing is just experimentation. So if you're looking for solid, common sense, well-researched opinions on this sort of thing, I think Josh is a great guy to look to.